When someone has a passion for what they do, it comes through in the product they provide their customers. Just ask LaRocco's Pizza's new owner, Jason Johnson, about their crust. They make it every day and let it rise for a minimum of 24 hours before they use it for their pizza. And his staff doesn't want to do anything they won't be the best at, and you can taste it in their pizza. LaRocco's Pizza, just a half block north of the I-470 and Gage Boulevard exit. Come taste the difference.
It's time for Real Estate 101 with the Carrie Brown team from Preferred Advisors.
Good Saturday morning to you. This is Carrie Brown, Associate Broker with eXp Realty and Preferred Advisors team, and you're listening to Real Estate 101. I am here with Guy Anderson, and Guy is with Anderson Home and Commercial Inspections. Good morning, Guy.
Good morning.
He conveniently has his title on his shirt. We use him all the time. I just say Anderson Home Inspections, but there's commercial in there too. So if you need him for residential and commercial, he's your guy.
I started out with just home inspections. Then I got my accreditation for commercial about, 8 years ago?
And you would think in 8 years' time I would get that right. So with all the rain that's been going on, we thought it would be a pretty good subject to touch on how to keep water out of your basements.
Good topic. So, first off, spring cleaning. You go and make sure your gutters are clear, your downspouts are well away from your foundation. That is probably your number one biggest culprit for water intrusion. The second thing is making sure you've got a nice positive slope away from your foundation. It's astronomical how many thousands of gallons go through your gutters and downspouts. It's kind of like going and turning on your faucet, your outside faucet, and just leaving it on for a full day. You wouldn't even think about doing something like that, but that's exactly what your gutters are doing. So this time of year, man, my sump pump's been going nonstop. About every 2 minutes, it's been going and going on and coming back off again. So I've been getting a lot of questions about that lately with all the rain we've been having.
Absolutely. And I was just at a house recently to meet with them, and they had some significant foundation movement. They back up to I-70, and so the slope of the ground in their backyard pours to their house.
Yes.
You know, I would say most homeowners don't get that maybe there should have been a French drain or that there should have been a higher buildup of dirt there. Mm-hmm. You know, most homeowners don't know those things unless they bring out a professional to tell them.
Well, and it isn't until you start seeing that water and it says, well, why am I getting that? You know, so then you start really looking at it. But you get used to seeing what you're seeing out in your yard. Well, and I had to add dirt not too long ago to my backyard just because over the years it's been gradually eroding. You know, if it develops water in areas and where you get too much water and then it ends up killing off the grass, then it starts eroding the dirt. So, yeah, you got to make sure you got a nice positive slope away from your foundation.
And if you have pets, especially dogs that like to dig and lay in cool ground, I mean, I have seen craters in yards.
Oh, yeah.
Professional diggers.
Yeah.
And they like to be up next to the house.
Yeah.
And, you know, sometimes it doesn't matter how many times you fill it back in again. Those little guys are like, hey, cool, I get to dig some more.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's really important to keep that grade at a positive grade and not a negative pouring towards your foundation.
Yes, very much so. And then right before I came here, my neighbor asked me about, he's got a radon mitigation system. Well, on your sump pump, you've got a cover that's covering that. And he says, well, can I pop that off? And does it void the warranty? And because he was concerned about, he had a black cover, so he couldn't see what his sump pump was doing. All he can do is hear it because it was going off constantly. Kind of concerned about it. But for you guys that have mitigation systems that are covering your sump pumps, if you have that is just secured down, it's sealed down with silicone, and so you can. It was meant to pop off. It's not supposed to be glued down, just silicone down. So you can just take your putty knife and go right up underneath it and pop that cover up to where you can go and replace your sump pump if you need to. It just makes sure you put a bead of silicone around it again, clean it up, and put a bead of silicone again around that lid, so then it provides a nice suction again. So, but you can certainly do that yourself.
So the question is, does that void your warranty?
No, it does not.
Okay, so now you know. So whenever it comes to foundations, and obviously you discussed the gutters and the downspouts, are there other things like vegetation? Yes.
Yeah, the vegetation when it's up next to your house, for one, when it's that dense and and right up next to your house, it doesn't allow your foundation to dry out at a normal rate. So keeping, vegetation around is fine, but keep it a little further up away from the foundation. So make sure you keep your shrubs and stuff like that a little further out away from your foundation. Make sure that you can easily walk through between your house and the shrub. That should give you plenty enough room for your siding to dry out like it's supposed to at a normal rate, as well as your foundation. Because if it's just dark all the time, then it's going to promote wood rot on your siding and that. Foundations give you a little hint on when I do inspections. What I'm checking for is any lateral movement. That's when the wall moves inward a little bit. So I'm checking the distance between the siding and the foundation at corners, and then I go in. And anything, you can do the same thing to your foundation, especially if it's finished off in the basement. You can go and measure that as you go towards the center. If it's anything an inch or more, you need to be probably getting a hold of a structural contractor to take a look at it. Now, water is the biggest culprit for that wall movement. So again, it's really important to keep that water from pooling up against your foundation.
And it's amazing to me. I've seen where people have tied together their downspouts, but then they don't consecutively take care of their, like if they've got a lot of trees, well, now their gutters are filling up. Mm-hmm. And if somebody gets clogged in that little joint where they tie them in together, all of a sudden it's pouring over the sides of the gutters.
Yep, it sure is. I personally like gutter screens and that, and then doing subsurface downspouts, because a lot of times, you can put a splash block on. A standard splash block is about 2.5 feet long. It's really not that far. Requirements, they suggest highly to do 3 feet. So by the time you inch it out a little bit, so then your downspout, your splash block is right below your downspout, then you have just that much enough room. But really, it's a good idea to get it a lot further out, at least 6 feet in that, in order to not have a big old ugly corrugated pipe going there. I would use I would subsurface my drains, and then that way you don't have to move it, because invariably they don't get put back on, or I'll do it later type thing. But I would just do subsurface drains, and then that way it's one and done. You get her done, and then you can mow over it, and you don't have to worry about it, and you still have your downspouts well away from your foundation, and makes a big improvement, especially on that corner that your sump pump is on. Because if you don't have your downspout well away from your foundation, it's all that water that's discharging is going into the earth and then cycling right on through into your sump pit.
So when you say subsurface, what are you using under the ground as far as to route it?
I would use PVC, like a 3-inch pipe of PVC. It's nice and smooth. The corrugated stuff, if it gets leaf debris and something like that, the corrugated stuff will catch, and that where PVC is nice and slick, and so even if some leaf material gets in there, it'll flush out. Now, something else that you ought to consider too is window well covers, using those. Even though it doesn't seem like it's all that big of a surface area, but that's where a lot of water intrusion occurs as well. If you don't have covers, leaf debris goes into your window wells, and then it covers up or breaks down in the silt, and then that silt starts getting into your exterior drain tiles that's right underneath your rock. Then it can fill up that window well just like a tub, and then it will raise up and leak through your window. So window well covers, clean them out. Make sure there's gravel around there so you get good drainage into your exterior drain tiles that's right below the window, and then putting in a window cover or at least a grid will help out tremendously.
So, Guy, I know my answer to this question, but whenever somebody's looking to sell a house or thinking, in the near future they may be considering it, should they have a pre-home inspection?
I think it's important. If you've been in that house for a long, long time, and that, especially if it's not an older house or newer house, and you've been in it for 30 years, there's a lot of stuff that have changed over the time. Doing a pre-listing, it kind of helps you. As fast as these houses have been selling lately, it relieves a lot of stress and pressure on the seller, because then if they have a pre-listing, then they go and have a home inspection done. They identify the issues with the house, and then everything that's in that report is pretty much considered disclosed. So then that way you have time to fix them if you want to. Maybe it's a minor stuff, and that you don't really want to mess with that. And then you turn around and give have the report out for any buyers, and said, this is the home inspection report. This is what the inspector found, and the house is priced accordingly. There are some things that we fixed. We marked it in there of what we fixed, and some other things are what we just didn't want to take care of right now, but they're being disclosed to you right here. I have a lot of estates where the families don't want to fix anything. They just want to know what's wrong with the house, and they just want to get through it. So they'll go ahead and do a pre-listing inspection, and they'll do just that. Here's what the inspector found. The house is priced accordingly.
Absolutely. And that's a big thing to remember, especially if you're a buyer. Most of the time, the house is priced based on information known. So if it's priced at, say, $50,000, and it really, if it were fixed up, would be worth $100,000, they've already priced it based on what they know the work to be. So some of that's education and understanding that, just because it's $50,000 and you know that you're going to need, flooring throughout, or, cosmetic stuff, or maybe even a roof or some windows, you can't come in and say, okay, let's take another 20 off. But it is always great to have that pre-home inspection, and the way our contracts are written, as long as it's disclosed, they don't have to do it. So that is a really good improvement that has taken place with our contracts.
I've had a couple here lately, 3 of them, matter of fact, that are getting ready to sell their home. They've been in it for 15 plus years. They're getting ready to sell their home, but in a year or so. And so they had me go ahead and inspect it to check it out and see what kind of things that they need to go ahead and fix. And they had plenty of time to fix these items then. And so, it's just smart. As quick as these homes have been selling, and then you have all of a sudden, okay, you're getting ready to sell your home, and you only have a short amount of time to fix these items because this is what the inspector found. It just makes a lot of sense just to be able to know everything in advance, and so that it's not that big of an issue.
Yeah, and it's a stressful process anyway.
Yes.
So whenever you start sliding in inspections and things are, you've lived with it for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't catch on fire or break or anything like that. But now all of a sudden it's a problem and it needs to be fixed, and it's not up to code, or it actually was a fire hazard. You're just lucky it didn't happen.
Yes.
Things like that. You'd be surprised at how often we actually do see that.
Yeah.
So we'll talk more about that after the break. We're going to take a quick break for a word from our sponsors.
Southwest Topeka has a good neighbor. State Farm agent Jim Garrison, now at 29th and Urish. If your current insurance situation has you going around in circles, get off the roundabout and stop in and meet Jim and his wonderfully efficient staff. Let Jim Garrison give you a quote and make the Garrison comparison. He's confident that with State Farm's competitive rates, the right coverage, and his unmatched service, you'll want to make him your new insurance agent. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there, and Jim Garrison is there for you, northeast of the roundabout at 29th and Urish.
When someone has a passion for what they do, it comes through in the product they provide their customers. Just ask LaRocco's Pizza's new owner, Jason Johnson, about their crust. They make it every day and let it rise for a minimum of 24 hours before they use it for their pizza. And his staff doesn't want to do anything they won't be the best at, and you can taste it in their pizza. LaRocco's Pizza, just a half block north of the I-470 and Gage Boulevard exit. Come taste the difference.
Thanks for joining us again. This is Carrie Brown, Associate Broker with eXp Realty and the Preferred Advisors team, and you're listening to Real Estate 101. I am back with Guy Anderson, and Guy is with Anderson Home and Commercial Inspections. And he's showing me his shirt again. If you missed the first part of the show, I'm used to him being Anderson Home Inspections. He's only been Anderson Home and Commercial Inspections for 8 years. I mean, I'm a slow learner. So we were talking before the break about pre-home inspections. Let's go into details. What goes into the pre-home? I know that they're very similar to a home inspection. What can they expect whenever they're selling their house and they're going through a whole house inspection?
What they can expect is that it's a very thorough inspection. We are there generally about 3 hours and that. So it is... we're looking at the roof clear on down to the basement, foundation, everything. We're looking at the siding. We're getting up in the attics. We're on your roof, looking down your chimneys and testing the electrical, and also run a lot of water for checking out plumbing.
So they go in and you guys turn water on everywhere. And,
oh, yeah.
And then... So you guys know what we see. When Guy is done, he's got all the pictures and the descriptions, and it's either really great and it's short, or I always look at, this is terrible, and he doesn't know this yet, but he's going to know it now. I always look at the page number to determine whether or not I should be freaking out or not. And I'm like, oh, man. It's like 30 pages. And then I skip to the last page to see what the numbers are. Yeah. And then I go back and read the rest.
Yeah. But we're going around. Your home inspection entails going and looking at everything on the outside. I'm a very touchy-feely guy, so what I'm doing is I'm pushing on window sills and window trim. Your siding, if anything is soft, I'm recommending repair or replacement. I'm doing just like what I told you earlier, which was measuring your foundation and looking for shear cracking on the corners, and for any signs of inward movement. And that inside, we're checking out moisture stains, things like that, so I know what I need to look for when I'm up on the roof, and where'd that stain come from type thing. And, all your electrical panels are opened up and checked and that. Most people don't have Federal Pacific boxes anymore. So with Federal Pacific boxes, in case anybody has those, it's the box that's marked Federal Pacific, and it's the orange circuit breakers. Those breakers and the box itself have been known to not shut off when overloaded. So they had been creating house fires and that. So whenever we come across a Federal Pacific box, then we flag it for further evaluation to determine whether or not that is one of those panels that won't shut off like they're supposed to.
Which is good because we've already been through the, oh no, we have to replace it. I've gotten pretty good about going as soon as I list it and I look at the electrical box just to see. And, you know, if I see that they're open, like there's open panels in there or anything like that, you know, just the basic things. Obviously, we're not allowed to be inspectors, but we do know that there can't be open areas. There either has to be a breaker there or there has to be
a dead front cover.
Thank you.
Yep. You're not supposed to use tape anymore.
No duct tape.
No tape.
No duct tape. It doesn't matter if it's leopard print or zebra print or pink or silver. Just don't do it.
Yeah.
Because we've seen it all.
Well, and see, on my inspections, especially if the house, say, was built in 1970 or even 80, when GFCIs, that's ground fault circuit interrupters, were invented, they weren't in homes yet on, we'll just say, a 1970 house. And so I consider that an upgrade, and I put it down under optional for something that the buyer should consider doing at some point. But it's not a requirement as far as selling the home. And that now I've been hearing lately that a lot of the financial institutions, mortgage companies, as well as the VA and VH, and FHA, are now starting to require those in bathrooms and kitchens. So I may end up having to change that. But just to let you know, if you're in an older home and you're getting ready to sell it, more than likely you're going to have those switched out to GFCI outlets.
I just had one recently that had to have a GFCI in the garage, and there was no water anywhere near it. See, we fudge on that a little bit because, yes, it's supposed to be what's supposed to be is a GFCI protection within 5 to 6 feet of a water source. And then later on, they included exterior, which also they added garages on top of that, too. So we didn't get to get fudged on this one.
Yeah.
Dang it.
Yeah. So it's kind of hit or miss. But, yeah, some inspectors will go ahead and call it. I believe if you're buying an older home, that's what you're getting. And that I don't believe that we should bring it up to a brand new home in order to sell it. And that is my own opinion. But I certainly put it under optional, saying these are the things that, these are the standards now, and that's what you ought to consider doing.
Absolutely. And I mean, as long as it's safe, I do agree. If you're buying a turn of the century home, you would have to practically rewire everything to get it. And that's just not even feasible.
Yeah.
So,
and knob and tube wiring, a good example of the knob and tube wiring in those old homes. They're fine as long as they're left open, they're not covered up, and they're not spliced into. So a lot of times what happens in these older homes is that maybe you only had one outlet per room. And so instead of rewiring everything, they just added outlets because you needed them anyway. So, but that's what they're going to. But as long as they're not covered up, because they can overheat if they're covered up with insulation. So, but you may end up having some electricians that disagree with that and want to rip it all out.
I haven't seen too many disagree with that as long as it was left intact.
Yes.
And the way it's supposed to be. And most home inspectors I haven't seen try to rewire them. But, imagine if they did. How expensive that would be.
Yes, it would.
But then again, we just got flagged for a GFCI in a garage with no water anywhere in sight. So who knows what's going to happen next week?
Yeah, I've received a few of those calls saying, well, you said that the knob and tube is okay. We went in and had a certain electrician come in and say, all this knob and tube need to be replaced. And I said, no, as long as it's not spliced into and it's in good shape and exposed, then you're okay.
Yeah. And I think with any trade and with anything, everybody has an opinion.
Yes.
So if you follow the guidelines and the way that they're set out, then the guidelines are there for a purpose.
Yes.
Okay. So you guys do radon inspections too, correct?
Yes. Do the testing and that. Used to do the mitigation part, but we've left that to another company now. But yeah, radon testing, as you know, back in July of 2008, they changed it to where all of us had to be licensed, and in order to do the measurement as well as the mitigation part, you are still allowed as a homeowner to do the install on that, which may save you quite a bit of money if you are mechanically inclined. But as far as the test goes, they're putting out the trade-off for us getting licensed in 2008 was having a paragraph in your contract that reads about what radon is, and do you want to have it tested in your home, and then you have to sign off on it. K-State's been doing a lot of PSAs about it and that, so people are becoming more and more aware of radon and that they need to test to make sure. So basically, radon is uranium that changes molecular structure 3 times before it turns into a radon gas. And so that's why it is considered the second leading cause of lung cancer, aside from smoking, is because it is, radioactive. And that it's always been around. A lot of it depends. Your neighbor and you may have completely different radon levels depending on the type of soil that's underneath your home, the fissures that are in the stone bedrock that's underneath, and the openings that are in your basement, crawl space, or slab. All 3 emit radon. Radon gas is lighter than air, so it comes up through those fissures, comes up through cracks and openings. Sump pump is one of the biggest ones. Rough ends for plumbing and that. So if you got that, you might want to consider putting maybe plastic over your rough ends. One in the basement. A rough end is where you can install a bathroom if you want to, but it's all open to the soil, as well as putting a cover on your sump pump too. But anyway, more than likely, if you go to sell your home, more than likely it will be tested for radon. So the action level is 4.0 picoliters. So if it's at 4.0 or above, then mitigation is recommended. And what they do is usually use your sump pump pit, if it's convenient. That's the best way, because you've already gone and established a leach field there. But that's a good way of using that contact. Bring it up and out the rim joist of your home. You attach a fan. I'm sure you've seen it, and it goes out and discharges the radon gases outside the home.
And the biggest thing is don't point it back into a window.
Yes, very much so. I've seen those.
I have too. Actually, they got called out in a home inspection. So, Guy, if they were looking to do a pre-home inspection or a home inspection, how do they get a hold of you?
They can call my office. That number is 785-478-2224. They can also go on my website, AndersonHomeInspect.com, and order that. Those 2 are the primary.
All right. And if you're looking to buy or sell, be sure and give us a call at 785-213-5188. You can also check out our website at preferredadvisorsteam.com. Thanks for listening to Real Estate 101.
Thank you for listening to Real Estate 101 with the Carrie Brown team from Preferred Advisors.